Welcome to episode 784 of today's Antidote. And yes, I'm back up on the horse again. If you watched or listened to yesterday's episode, you remember that I had all kinds of challenges with the introduction. So I'm back here today all over again. We're talking about the emotions, and I had all kinds of emotions around how I did the opening yesterday. But today, no emotions. And today we're going to talk about your pathway emotions. The emotions on your pathway as you're trying to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve, and the benefits that come from those emotions. And there are some benefits. So stay tuned. All that and more coming up on today's Antidote.
Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Folks, I got to tell you, Tom is not the most animated person after I do the introduction, but he was all about it today.
I was celebrating.
You were celebrating. You made me laugh.
And I was celebrating? That you did it again.
Oh, that piece of cake. Got to. You know, there's a point in my life, and there are things where I wouldn't do it again, but that's not one. I mean, you know, it is what it is, right?
It's what's real.
It's what's real. That's it. So come on, Tom, we got to get rolling really quick here because I know people want to know how many adjectives I used yesterday, and I gave you a preview. So, okay. You know.
Should we do that first, or should we celebrate the actions you took yesterday later?
What do you mean the actions I took? No, it's all interconnected, right?
It is. So do you want to share now, or do we want to do our intro and then?
No, do the usual introduction.
Okay. All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Antidote, our daily broadcast and podcast, where each week Bob and I have a conversation around a topic. As Bob mentioned in his introduction, we are talking this week about pathway emotions. Today, we are going to dive into the benefits of that. Yesterday, we talked about the challenges, which was a really fascinating episode. It was an episode. Bob.
That's one for you.
One for me. Bob asked me a question and that I had a chance to respond to. And I think we had a discussion. Then we had a discussion around that question that I think could be impactful if you want to go and take a look at it. Anyhow, so today, as we talk about the benefits, and we dive into that conversation, if you have thoughts or ideas you'd like to share around the benefits of emotions along your pathway, please feel free to put them in the comments because we know that'll add value to the show. Usually when people add comments, it has an impact on what Bob and I have to say. And yesterday we got a number of comments, which was great. Clearly, emotions is a interesting topic that people have decided to share.
That would be an adjective, just so you know. Interesting.
Two for me.
It's hard to do, isn't it?
It can be sometimes. Anyhow. And as we wrap up that conversation at the end of it, we will share our one thing, our today's antidote. That thing that we hope will help you figure out how to take your next step. When you might be stuck, frustrated, uncertain, maybe lacking a little confidence, and not quite able to take the next step forward. And maybe emotion has been a part of that challenge. So hopefully today, this one thing will help you move forward. And it'll be a benefit rather than a challenge that you have to try to overcome. And of course, if you have one thing you'd like to share, please feel free to share it as well. Even though you may think, well, everybody already knows this. This is just common knowledge. Well, usually those are the things that someone else out there is not aware of and has the opportunity to have an impact on them. It might be just what they're looking for. So please feel free to share.
It's also amazing to me, Tom, just to jump in and say how many times what I think is common knowledge, someone says, I never thought about that. Or someone says, well, you know this, right? And you go, no, I really didn't know that.
Or at least not from that perspective. You may have considered it just differently.
Or they say it in the words that it clicks for you.
Yes, in their words, certainly.
Or they say you've heard it now 123 times, and the 124th time is the time that you're ready to hear it.
Yes.
And that's when you can take action around it. I see that a lot in my life.
I would agree. Before we dive into that conversation, though, each day we do our celebrations. So, Bob, what are you celebrating today?
I'm celebrating the fact that I did the introduction today because I wasn't going to. And I think so often we get paralyzed by something. We do something and we have a problem with it. It doesn't work the way we thought. And we just, rather than try it again, we walk away from it. And I think, and I was a little anxious when I started it. And imagine if I never did another introduction again for our program. It'd be kind of boring. And that's a possibility. And I think,
are you saying that my introductions are boring? That's what it sounds like.
No, it would just be repetition in that we'd only hear your voice. And I think you and I bring different sensibilities to it.
Okay.
Not good or bad, just different. So I think, and so often we discount something when it's not easy or when it doesn't go as planned the first time. So I'm celebrating the fact that I took the step again with different information. In fact, we talked before the program about a way that we could tweak things to make the chances of me muddling it go down. And that's the iterative process that I think we all are doing in our lives and in our businesses and as leaders. You try something, you get the results, you look at what went well, what didn't go well, how you might do it differently. I know, I'm playing with you. And then you try it again a little differently. And that's what you do. You and I are doing that with all kinds of things all the time. I wrote a draft of an email yesterday, and you said, I see it a little differently. And we started to play around. And I think the collaborative aspect of that made that work in a way that so often we write the first draft of something, or we say, this is how this is going to be. And we don't iterate. And when we don't iterate, I think that's when we get stuck. And that stuck often is more than stuck. It's paralyzed. You just can't move forward. And I think so often that's what you and I coach around, is helping people see that, you think you're paralyzed and you can't do this thing, but what about this, this, and this? What if you made this tiny little shift and then the light bulb goes off and goes, well, that's not so bad.
Sure. I think and what you're stuck in usually is the emotion around what happened in the back in your history. Yep. You not wanting to do the intro this morning had a little bit to do with the way you did the intro yesterday and your reaction to that. And so rather than judging that intro, the opportunity to stop saying, how could I have done this differently? Which then gives you the opportunity to say, okay, now that I know there's another way to potentially do it, and some steps that we could take to make it even
that's even worse.
To make it even easier, then it would provide an opportunity for that you're ready to take the next step. And I think that's the challenge. It's the emotion that gets us stuck. And again, if you want to hear more about that was pretty much the question Bob asked me yesterday that I gave a response to. So if you want to go back and look at episode 783, the challenge is around pathway emotions. There's some insight there as well. I like that
celebrate today.
You know what I'm going to celebrate?
What's that?
I'm going to celebrate the fact that you actually took the action yesterday to try and measure the thing that we were talking about. We talked about, just in case I can't remember what we talked about on the show or off the show. We were talking about.
We talked on the program.
We talked on it about it and a little bit
afterwards. The number of adjectives I used for the day.
Correct. And I think we had a discussion around that, and Bob was willing to try an action that there is no doubt after the show when we were talking more about it, he was ready to punch me.
I was thinking about driving to Tom's house, about a 35-minute drive.
Yes.
And resolving this once and for all with some choice adjectives.
Yes. And he stuck with it. He didn't let emotion get the best of something that could be valuable. It's a chance to learn something.
Mhm.
And he continued through it, and you continued through the day. And I think that that's worthy of being celebrated. And, the question becomes now is how do you look at that? And know that there's a chance someday down the road that you might go back and have another day where you do how many?
57 adjectives.
57 times that you clarified something with an adjective that likely created some sort of emotional response.
And 17 of them were in the discussion with you after the program.
Yes. And there were some other words in there that
Yeah.
may or may not be worthy of counting how many times.
I was characterizing Tom repeatedly.
Yes.
With a chosen phrase, as it were.
Very chosen phrase that we cannot repeat on the air.
It began
Yes.
with you, so you can imagine after that.
Yes. So that's what I'm celebrating. Is your willingness to try that. You didn't have to. You could have just said, that guy is crazy. I am not doing this. And, hopefully there was some value there. The results of which you may see some of that now, and you may see some of it further down the road as results change. That's my celebration.
It had me scrutinizing the words I use more. It also had me recognizing how frequently the adjective was in my head, and it was around an emotion.
Sure.
That I would say in probably 40 of those cases, that emotion that I was capturing with that adjective would disappear. If you said to me, you characterized it this way at 9:15 in the morning, at 9:15 at night, it probably would be characterized differently. Or, I hate to say it, not even characterized at all. Like, yeah, it just happened. So I think that was a real eye-opener for me.
The other thing I'd be curious about is, did you start to recognize it when other people did it?
I did with you.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
We become much more acutely aware. And I think if we are listening to ourselves differently, we start to listen to others differently. And usually, I think, more intently, I believe.
And the other thing I would add is, I don't think I think about those words as much as I think about other words. It's just the first one that comes to mind.
Sure. Well, and that's part of it, right? Is we often just want to respond. And sometimes haven't put together a response, a thought about the response before we just say it. And I think what we don't realize is the impact that has on us and others.
And I think it has more of an impact on us than we realize.
And
it only has an impact on others because it has an impact on us. Because think about the person who you would describe as always negative. They're living in a world where the adjectives are all negative. Oh, this coffee is lousy. Oh, it's a cloudy day. It's going to be rainy when I go out for my walk this afternoon. There was no hot water this morning in the shower, so the shower was cold, and it just feeds itself. And we've all been around those people versus the people that are constantly upbeat, right? And the day when the upbeat person's not upbeat, and you're like, okay, what's wrong with you?
Well, and I also think they're not overly upbeat. Because I think that can also be, I've been around those people where everything is,
it's cloudy today. I'm so excited. I love a good cloud. Maybe it'll rain later.
Well, and taking to the extreme, and I think they're stuck in that extreme as well.
Yes.
Is in their effort to not seem quote unquote negative, they go overboard the other way. And I think they get stuck in that side of the emotion. I think there's an opportunity to find, I don't know if I share this. Since we're talking about emotions, I'm going to share it.
Can I, before you do that, can I jump in with Michael's comment?
Certainly.
Michael says, when you listen to others, you not only help them process their own feelings, but you also create a more supportive and collaborative environment that can benefit everyone involved. And who knows, you might even learn something new about yourself in the process.
Going back to that, if it's all about learning.
Well, I was going to say, Michael's hopped on the Tom learning train. Thank you, Michael, for that. I love that. It's so compact. He says a lot in a very short time.
I would agree.
And you think, I like the idea that you listen to others, you help them process their own feelings, but you also create that collaborative environment. As a leader, as a business owner, whatever it is, creating that collaborative environment instead of do this, do that. Mm-hmm. Hey, how do you see this going? What are some of your thoughts on how you might do this thing today? Can really open doors and really make people feel valued within what you're trying to accomplish, because we can't do anything alone. And then Michael adds this very simply, I think I can, with a train.
Nice.
I think Michael's now covered both sides. Beautiful, eloquent, so much in a short sentence. And then he goes to a very simple, I think I can.
Certainly.
And I'm really trying to convince myself that it's not I think I can, but it's I can. And taking the think out of it. And believing more and more I can do things, because I realize when I believe I can do something, I will do it.
Well, and I think the interesting thing is, I think the fear of it is the expected results, right? You
and
can
the
take
emotions
actions.
Around failing.
Correct. You can take actions. I can do that. Absolutely. What is the concern is the expected result. The little engine that could took the action to try and go up the hill.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, there's only so much control that the engine has of making it over the hill.
Right.
At some point, it just isn't built maybe to get over it. It might be too steep. It might be too long.
Never knew we'd be talking about this today.
Well, I think it's an interesting thing. The whole thinking you can is all about worried about the end result, rather than just take the action and see what the result is that you typically can't control.
Although one of the benefits to the emotions, because we're talking about the emotions we have on our pathway and the benefits today, I think one of the benefits I see is when I have emotion around something, it shows me that it matters to me. If I don't have emotion around something, so this opening this morning mattered to me. Okay. If I just come in and said, yeah, sure, Tom, I'll do it, whatever, and I just throw it together, I don't think that's an opportunity to share my value with the world. I also don't think it's an opportunity to learn. If we take emotion out of things, it's the old San Diego is 72 degrees and sunny every day. So Christmas is 72 and sunny. Thanksgiving's 72 and sunny. Easter's 72 and sunny. Every holiday is roughly 72 degrees and sunny. And that's beautiful. I mean, I've been to San Diego. It's a beautiful city. It's really nice. When you're coming from the East Coast where the weather is cold and you go to San Diego, it's really nice. When you come San Diego from warm East Coast, very nice. But I think after about a week of the same, it would get very monotonous to me, in the sense that I like having some, it's nice to have days where things, you might say, go poorly, because then it's like, okay, I'm not perfect at everything. Imagine if everything went well. If every day was perfectly sunny outside, you would never appreciate a sunrise. I watched the sunrise this morning. It was cold. I was out walking. It was cold. I appreciated the sunrise. It was different than the last sunrise I saw. And the temperature was different. And I think in our business and in our leadership role, every day is different. And it's going to bring emotions. And I think the other benefit to emotions is, I think emotions are something that we transact between people. That my emotions affect you, your emotions affect me. There are mornings, I was telling someone this morning, that you can pretty much read me in about 3 seconds every morning when we hop on here. I know you know exactly where I am in my head, and you could be like, oh boy, here we go. Or, oh, okay. Because we've done this 780 some odd times. My emotions over those 780 episodes have been all over the place. Let's be honest. Every which way. You've seen every emotion I could possibly bring at you. And I think in some ways being able to share those emotions with people also shows that we care. You know, if I'm a robot with you and I don't show you my emotions, then I don't trust you. Because a big part of who we are as people is our emotions, right? So when I share with you my frustrations, I shared with you pretty openly some frustrations yesterday. I think on some level, you have to say, wow, this guy really respects me. He really was vulnerable with me. He values my role in his life because he really shared some things I wasn't expecting to hear from him. If I hadn't done that, I think that doesn't deepen our relationship. I see we have more comments, so I'm going to jump in.
Okay.
Edward's with us this morning. Well timed, right? I opened my upholstery shop I think that's in 1982. At 22 years old with a lot of baggage from a childhood trauma. My mental state about myself was of being inadequate socially. Through the years, my business pulled my outlook about my value and built my confidence. And Edwards run for political office. I mean, he's out and about. He's putting it out there. And then Michael jumps in. Thank you for that, Edward. Fear can manifest in various forms, such as fear of failure, fear of success, fear of disappointment, fear of change, and so on. Wow, he's like reading my script. However, remember that the fear of results is often worse than the actual outcome. It's all about calculated risks. I like that.
Yeah.
And I think fear is so much of what the emotion is that often we get stuck in, right? We're afraid. You're afraid of success. You're afraid of disappointment. He gives a great list. Fear of change, I think, is a big one. Oh, if I do this thing, if I do the opening really well today, Tom's going to want me to do it every day. And that means I have the pressure every morning to do the opening. And the funny thing is, Tom, until yesterday morning, I never really thought hard about the openings. I just did them. And suddenly in the last 2 days, not like I was, not after yesterday's program.
Okay.
I thought about it, but not like, oh boy, I got to get this right. So thank you for that, Michael. And thank you, Edward.
Well, and I think that, those fears come around because of expected outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And whether they are based in something in our past that, well, I did this time before, and now this time if I do it again, I'm going to get the same result, or about things we've never done. And I think we want things so often to be the same.
Or better.
And we're afraid of different. I don't know why. I just think we're afraid of different. And that fear of different is really the fear of learning. And because if everything's the same, what do we ever learn? If it's
Right.
62 or 72 and sunny every day in San Diego, as you say, I would like to test that theory.
I'm being a little extreme, in fairness.
Okay. How do you ever learn how to drive in different weather? Because unless you stay in the exact same place all the time, which again is being the same, how do you start to learn other things? And I think that the comfortness of the same, I think it's and I'm going to do this intentionally, it's a false comfort.
Oh, look at you using the adjectives.
Is really what keeps us from being comfortable with doing something different or having something different or someone saying something different, that we just want it all to be the same. And yeah, that can happen. And yeah, you might learn a little bit. I think there's something in the difference that allows us to learn more, which is why one of my favorite questions are the ones that we ask is, what might I do differently? Because I think that starts to get us to think about things and explore all the various elements of whatever it was we just did, and understanding that those variables likely means we're going to get different results. And I think sometimes that's fearful. I think one of the reasons people don't want to speak is because they almost believe that they are going to get results they don't desire, and that those results they don't desire is what keeps them off stage. And in some ways, they almost want it to stay that way. So now I don't ever have to do anything different, because I just believe that this is the last time I did it, this is what happened, and that's going to happen every other time I do it. And so I'm going to choose not to do it, rather than taking the opportunity to do it again and understand you did the opening this morning, and you could have had similar results as yesterday. It's possible. Mm-hmm. And in some ways that may have just reinforced your belief that, oh, I just can't do this.
Right.
And I think that when we allow the emotions to reach a certain level, and that don't put us in fear, they allow us to learn. And I think that's the emotions at a certain level draw us to taking a next step, which allows us to learn.
So do you have one thing?
I think that's it. I think that the true benefit of emotions is that they propel us a little bit. At a certain level, they propel us to take action. And that in taking that action, we have the opportunity to learn and to see and realize that, okay, yeah, we took this action. This is what happened, and what might we do differently next time? Which is, to me, is all about how do we get the chance to learn. And I think sometimes if we don't have any emotions around it, we're not going to be like, oh, okay, I did this and there was nothing that really happened. It didn't evoke any emotion. Why would I have the sense to try to learn from it? Even though I think you still can. Yet the emotion has the opportunity to drive you to differently understand what just happened. And that provides you with an opportunity to learn.
I could not say it better, Tom. I could try, but I'm not. That was really well done. I'm gonna echo yours with mine. That's literally. I'm not even gonna say more. I'm gonna jump in with a comment from Edward. My wife says that it's human nature to have a desire to change, but we don't want change because we desire safety, making us bipolar to change. That might be one of the most insightful things I've ever read. Let me say it again, because it takes a minute to really think through. My wife said, this is Edward, it's human nature to have a desire to change. We all want things to change, but then we don't want change because we desire safety. So we have this pull between change and safety, making us bipolar to change.
I think we should end the show and just turn it over to her and let her talk through it.
There you go. We don't even know her name. Yeah, she's got a mic drop moment. So absolutely. I think you're right, Tom. Just go to the closing and call it a day.
All right. Well, thanks everybody so much for sharing your thoughts, Michael and Edward, and Edward's wife. Thank you. Very insightful. And again, it's interesting because Edward was willing to share. Clearly his wife, or he was sharing it with his wife, or his wife was willing to share something that probably for her is like, isn't this common knowledge? And yet she chose to share it, and it had impact on at least you and I imagine on some others, and caused us to think a little differently about what's out there. So that's why we really value your comments. Because again, you all have a different perspective. And again, things that you think might be just common are things that really someone who might be like, wow, it turns the light bulb on, and now they are ready to take different action so that they can learn more. So anyhow, thanks again for sharing your thoughts and ideas and being a part of our show today. If you're listening to the podcast and you're like, I've got this thing I want to share and I don't have any place to share it, it happens. Please feel free to join us inside our Ring of Renegades Facebook group. It's easy to do. Just go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades, answer a couple of questions, and then you can join us. And you can share your thoughts and ideas inside of there. And while you're sharing your value, you might uncover something that's like, I never thought about that. Something that someone else shares that they thought was common knowledge. And look at the impact that we can have on each other. So we look forward to seeing you inside of that group. You want to share this last comment?
I've got it right here for you. Yep. I was waiting. You got it? Oh,
go ahead before I wrap it up.
Cynthia would be Edward's wife's name. And he says, she is a genius, smart man. Always call him a genius. Wise words. He's getting that out in the public. He's going to have a day. Although Cynthia has an application issue, LOL. I like that. So many of us have the wisdom, but the application not always there.
Certainly. Well, here's something you can definitely do to apply, to put some application in. Join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. Be a part of that. And if we don't see you inside that group, you can join us tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern time, for our next episode of Today's Antidote. You can share your thoughts and ideas then as well. All right, everyone, go out and enjoy your day.
Hey, and whatever you do, embrace the renegade in you. Just embrace it.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. We will see you soon. Thanks for listening to Today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.